Interesting one in this is looking at your alkaline phosphatase, so your ALP. Because that's where I pick up a lot of women who have osteoporosis before they have any idea or even it's on their radar, is that ALP levels are rising. So if you look at, hopefully when you do labs, I get blood sometimes where I don't have more than one test timestamp, but some I have 4 or 5 over a few years. And if your ALP is continually rising, then that can be an indication that some bone issues, because ALP is in the bone. So, but if you find it's rising as you're getting older, that can be an indication.
Wow.
So I usually get women primarily, but men can too, just to get a DEXA, just to check it out. And I've had a few come back with osteoporosis that had no idea.
Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Steve and Nicole. And I was dreaming about this podcast last night.
You said that.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny. I was thinking, how are we going to get this into this one session and the other one that we're going to record after this? I'm thinking, how's it all going to... Because this one is huge.
Okay, it could be a really big subject.
It's difficult. I look at all the papers. It's like a slip cord, and if you're a cricket fan, it's like all piled out here. And
What's
it's all on...
What's a slip cordon, Steve?
It's all on bones.
What's a slip cordon?
What's a slip cordon? Cricket. There's slip cordon in cricket.
Okay,
what's a slip cordon? You're an Aussie, aren't you?
I am, but I don't listen to cricket.
Cricket, jeez.
Got it.
Jeez, I don't know. Now, slip cordon is they stand behind the batsman, and the most common place a batsman hits the ball is edging off it, and it goes to the slips cordon. That's why there's 3 or 4 people sitting there ready to catch.
Okay, so the papers look like a slip.
It looks like a slip cordon. It looks absolutely like a slip cordon on the table. So for those who are listening, and people don't know what a slip cordon is, but now they do. See, we thought we were doing our bones today, and we're talking about the slips cordon. But we are talking about bones today.
We are talking about bones today because I'm seeing a lot of stuff in clinic with bones. Issues with bone density, bone mineral density. And this is not a problem. I think a lot of people think this is just a female problem because osteoporosis postmenopausally is really common, which we'll talk about.
Common,
But it's not just a female problem. We all have bones.
We do.
There's a lot of things that can affect our bone quality, our bone health. So I think it's a really important subject. If we didn't have good bones, we're in trouble.
We're in big trouble. We've got hundreds of them. And they're all over our body, and they basically hold us up. We've got big bones, we've got small bones. Smallest bones in your ear.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
The biggest bones in your leg.
Yeah.
So really interesting stuff, the bone. And yeah, you're right. It's been very female orientated. It's always about, women, menopause and bones and, you got to take your calcium and drink your milk. And I'm going to tell you those 2 things are bad ideas.
Yeah, hold out for that because we've got some good science on the fact that dairy's not the best thing.
It's not the best thing for you. But it's like, it's very interesting because that's all we hear.
Yeah.
You heard about, the ads are brilliant.
They are great, aren't they? They've really worked well.
I've got to give that marketing campaign absolute 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Milk has been promoted as the cure-all for bones.
Yeah.
And I think even they're allowed to say it.
Yes,
that it's healthy for the bones. All I've done here is look at the studies on what happens when you drink milk. Do your bones break more or less? It'd be interesting to find out, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I won't give it away.
Because you will find out.
Absolutely. But let's talk about osteoporosis. We've all heard of that. What is that and what does that mean?
So osteoporosis basically is just thinning of the bones, but it's not just the bone density, it's also the bone quality that is impacted as well. So, and we've got a few little charts that we can show as well. So bones are porous, and they're quite flexible as well. So it's not just a solid bone that it starts to degrade. The inside of the bone, and we can talk more about that, you start to lose the density, and also as we'll show you as it goes along, but there's like it's all scaffolding, and then you can start to have little connections that don't meet anymore, and that sort of thing, and that really impacts the strength of our bones. So osteoporosis is weakening of the bones or thinning of the bones. But there's also osteopenia, which is pre-osteoporosis, which a lot of people have as well. So that's when things are starting to head towards osteoporosis, there is some loss of bone mineral density.
It's very common,
it's
particularly in women, but it's very common. So penia means small.
Yes.
There's only one way to remember that I know, but I won't say that on the podcast.
Don't say that.
Nick, don't even question.
No,
don't ask me
Steve,
that question.
Not even going there. You're not trapping me into anything.
No, don't even say that because we'll be, the emails will be thick. But yeah, penia means small. So but porosis means the porous means there's lots of holes in them. So if you look at a bone on a magnifying glass, it's like a scaffolding correctly, and it's got holes in it.
It does.
But the holes are just too big.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it's a scary situation. So all right. So then we've got these other things, these cells in the bones called osteoclasts and osteoblasts. What the hell's that all about?
So I thought we would just sort of explain what they are, because we're going to be talking about, when we're talking about things that can contribute to bone loss, and also treatment plans that can actually, or solutions to help improve our bone density. We need to sort of know what osteoclasts and osteoblasts are, so we can say, when we're talking about what builds them and what breaks them down and that sort of thing. Osteoblasts they build bone.
Yeah.
So what I learned in college, our lecturer said to us, is B for build.
Yep.
And osteoclast is C for crack or crumble.
Oh, crap. That's what I remember. Yeah.
Crap. That's another one as well.
Crackle, crumble. Yeah. So the blast build, and it sounds like blast. Hang on, that means something blowing apart. But no. Blast build. So there's a constant balance between this. I'll call it yin and yang. This sort of thing. And so what we really want, it sounds like we want more blasts to a point.
Yeah. So there's something called bone remodeling.
Yep.
And our body's always doing that. So we're always breaking down a little bit of bone and then rebuilding a little bit of bone. That's just like you said. That's just sort of that yin and the yang. That's just what happens. We have injuries, we have impacts. The body is always trying to strengthen things when things break down, and there's other reasons why the body will break down bone as well. So what we want to try and do is have that balance, as you said, like nice and even, because you have too much breaking down, then obviously that's when you get the weakening of the bone. So osteoblasts help to build bone up, and osteoclasts will break bone down.
So Nick, tell me about the osteoclasts, because they're a cool type of cell, aren't they?
They're a cool type of cell. They're a form of a white blood cell.
Right.
Which is really important when we talk about risk factors and contributing factors to bone loss, because anything that activates the immune system will actually activate osteoclasts. So they're a type of macrophage, which is a white blood cell. And what a macrophage does is it goes in and it'll eat up whatever pathogen or anything like that that's going on. So the immune cell activates, and then that it sends in macrophages. And the osteoclasts look almost identical to a macrophage. So if you look at them under a microscopic lens or a photo, they look very similar. So they're doing the same type of thing, but the osteoclasts are actually eating bone. So they're eating your own bone.
Yuck.
So anything that activates your immune system will activate these osteoclasts and eat your bone. So that's why it's not all about women and menopause and osteoporosis. There's a lot of other reasons that we can have issues with bone loss.
Incredible. It sounds like an immune disorder almost.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you say the macrophages act like phagocytes. They gobble things. So think of Pac-Man,
Yes.
Geez, hang on. Is that a bit old for people?
I used to have one of those Pac-Man. It was like a little Pac-Man, and you turn it on. And it was like the really old school computer game.
Yellow, it's about this colour, yellow.
Yeah, it was yellow, and it looked like a Pac-Man, and you turn it on, and it made the music.
Do you remember the
My brother
Pac-Man
had
song? Pac-Man Fever?
I don't remember that.
Crazy? Oh, jeez.
No, I just remember
that?
Did it. We're showing our age. Like this was like technology like next level back then, and was like green like splits.
Well, it was soon after Space Invaders, which was the big thing in 1980. I remember that. You save your 20-cent coin. So getting back to these phagocytes are things that swallow things and ingest things, and they present antigens to things. So it can be a white blood cell thing. So that's incredible. So it's sort of an immune problem. But okay, so all right, these increase with age. But what are the signs and symptoms of this
issues with
issues with bones? I was going to say osteoporosis, but osteopenia, everything.
Yeah. Well, the problem is there's not a lot of signs or symptoms.
Right.
And that's the thing, particularly with just progressive bone loss of bone mineral density. You don't know. No. And so I've seen quite a lot of women in clinic honestly menopausal or close to menopausal, that I see in the bloods, and we'll talk about where you can maybe look into their bloods to see some bone issues as well. That I've gone and had some testing done, which we'll talk about how to do that as well. That have come back with osteoporosis that had no idea.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a silent condition. So there can be no symptoms whatsoever, but obviously fractures.
Yep.
So frequent fractures.
That's called the incidental fine. So you might fall out of bed half drunk one night and you don't fall too far, but you break your leg.
Yeah.
And, it's like, what? And that's where you find you might have osteoporosis.
Exactly.
And there's very severe forms of osteoporosis called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a genetic disease, which they've got terrible bones. They're usually diagnosed as children because they'll fall off the swing and break 4 bones.
I know somebody who has bones like that. They'll break a bone. They'll just, trip and break a bone.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw a Bruce Willis movie with Glass. He was the guy in it, and he was, it was that guy. Very famous actor, I can't remember his name, but Bruce Willis. No, Bruce Willis and the other guy who Samuel L. Jackson. That's it. I was going to say the guy that swears all the time, and I couldn't say his catchphrase because we'd be kicked off the air. But he uses it sounds like methyl tetrahydrofolate gene thing. Right, that he always says that a lot, which is absolutely amazing. I love him as an actor.
Yeah, right.
So this osteoporosis. What are the signs and symptoms? Okay.
I've broken nearly every bone in my body.
You have?
Yeah, just about. Just as an aside. I have broken most bones in my body.
Really?
Arms, legs, back, ribs, hip. God.
Well, you used to ride horses,
I used to ride horses, yeah.
Ugh,
I've broken nearly everything, yeah. The worst broke I ever had was, I can't show my arm because of my puppy scratches. But
what happened to your arm, by the way? Did it you got attacked again?
No, they're the same
puppy?
ones.
Your dog is the size of a horse.
No, he's a big boy now.
Big boy.
But I'll show you this arm instead. No, when I was at school, primary school, and everyone does the whole on the swing things. I don't know if they'll still probably don't have swings anymore for the whole, suing situation.
Oh, yeah.
But I did a flip off the swings and landed on my arm, and I snapped both my bones in my arm. My arm was just swinging. That was the best one that I've had. So, I was in a cast for 7 months.
So both bones, the radius and the ulnar?
Both of them.
Wow.
So I had nothing holding my arm up. So I looked, I didn't even feel it. And I stood up and everyone's screaming, or the kids, and I'm like, what? And I looked at my arms.
So you had sort of two elbows.
Literally swinging, yeah.
2 elbows.
It was like, in the movies like Gumby, it was just like a plasticine arm. So that was kind of cool. But yes, I have. But we're not talking much about the broken bones as in like just healthy broken bones, but they actually repair stronger. So I should have a lot of strong bones.
You do? Yeah. I can't even see any deformity, so that must have healed.
No, it's just a little bit, and also my collarbone, I broke that and it wasn't picked up, so I had to re-broken because it knitted wrong, so that old chestnut. But anyway, so I've broken a lot of bones over in my life.
Jeez, you had in the wars, breaking bones, getting attacked by German Shepherds. Terrible. Jeez whiz. Okay, so what else are the signs and symptoms?
So limited mobility. Yep. So this is probably more older people who would see this in. Aches and pains, joint aches, bone pain. Some people get bone pain, so that can be part of it. Loss of height.
Yeah.
My grandmother had this. She got shorter. You know, your grandmother gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she also had the hump. So she did have osteoporosis. Yeah, but she had a parathyroid issue, so it's a whole
Well, parathyroid regulates calcium in the blood. Yeah. So if your parathyroid levels are too high, you just leach calcium like there's no tomorrow.
Exactly. And then you got that hump, that stooped posture as well. So, but there's not a lot. There's not a lot of signs or symptoms of any bone issues.
When we get to testing, there is a preventative test you can take, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Because your GP can order these tests. So what can what are some of the risk factors that people can do to themselves that make their bones worse?
Yeah.
What's the worst?
These are some of the modifiable risk factors, which means these are things you can change.
Yep.
The sedentary lifestyle, obviously, that's a big one. And we talk about that a lot. I mean, if you're not moving around, putting weight on your bones, then your bones don't have a task, so they're going to weaken.
It's terrible. I've got a paper here on that, and basically it's called The Regulation of Bone Health Through Physical Exercise, Mechanisms and Types. And this paper, published in Frontiers of Endocrinology, talk about that if you're inactive, and when I say inactive, it doesn't mean you're not going to work and doing jobs, but you're physically not stressing your bones, which is most of us.
Yes.
Most of us are not doing this. Yes, I went to the gym this morning and stressed, and I went there to build muscle, so I'd look even hotter, Nick, than I am now.
I thought you looked
It's
even more
hard to.
buff as you walked in, Steve. You struggled getting through
sideways,
that door.
yeah, the rippling
we have
muscles.
to widen the doorways.
But that's all good for the chicks and that, and but it's good for your bones as well. Just a bonus. Did you like that bonus?
Yeah.
Did you get the gig?
I
you
was
got
all over it today, Steve.
I don't know. You didn't laugh at that one.
Oh, no, there's a reason for that.
It was a shit joke. Yeah.
It was a shit joke. Yes.
But it's like so we're not talking when we say inactivity, we're not saying it really is something to stress your bones, and that will whatever builds your muscle builds your bone.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll talk more about that in the treatments or solutions as well. And here's another one, smoking. I mean, look, there's so many reasons not to smoke, but this is just another one.
Yeah.
So smoking increases bone loss and decreases intestinal calcium absorption.
Wow.
Yeah. So it decreases bone mineral density at the radius, femoral neck, and more in smokers than in non-smokers.
So that's your top of your leg and your wrist, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So here's another one. So here's another study. Effects of tobacco consumption on bone mineral density in healthy young males.
Mm-hmm.
So smokers had about 10% decrease in circulating levels of vitamin D.
Wow.
Compared to people who don't smoke.
So you just, and I know what people are thinking, I'll just supplement vitamin D, but it's just like you're playing catch up.
Yeah, that's exactly. There's, aside from all the other reasons that tobacco, nicotine, and all the things that are in.
Oh, nicotine,
bad for you.
I think people know that. But what else can cause poor bones?
Okay, so nutritional deficiencies is another one. So poor diet, junk food diet obviously is very low in any sort of essential nutrient. So that can be really bad. And we'll talk more about gut health a little bit further on.
Actually, there's a lot about that. It's very interesting because junk food diet is not just I'll drink 2 litres of or 600 ml of that's sugary. What do they call them? I'm trying to think of. I know what they're called in Melbourne, and I don't want to mention the brand name.
Slushy?
No, a Big M.
Oh, I used to love Big M.
So did I. Have chocolate Big M's.
Melbourne. But you know what?
That's Melbourne,
we keep going off on track. But it's Big M's are Melbourne because up here in Queensland they don't have Big M's.
No, they don't.
And they have they're flavoured milk for all the people that don't live in Melbourne. They're not the same. There's nothing the same as a Big M.
I don't know why. I was obsessed by them.
So was I. I haven't had one in like 30 years, but I used to love the strawberry and the banana. Oh, they were so good.
Just the big chocolate M on the front of it. You just go, I don't know.
And it was cold and in the summer. Anyway.
It was like a drug. I swear to God.
It was probably had crack in it, Well, it had a lot of sugar in it. So
that's addictive. Like you wouldn't believe.
That was the crack.
No, there was but just for the record, no crack.
No actual crack.
No crack cocaine.
No.
But it tasted like it was just like this thing that
was amazing.
It was just part of your life. It was like
it's a Melbourne institution.
Because we didn't have any money. I'm a single parent and all this sort of stuff, and so we didn't have much money. So that was
you were a single parent.
No, I was never a single parent. I'm from a single parent.
This is new information,
basically.
Steve. All these years telling us.
I'm now Beck knows.
Beck,
oh no,
you better do some digging into your husband's
life. There's going to be some dodgy, but it's funny because those things they were only cheap back then, but they were still too expensive for me.
Yeah,
so
you were on the Skid Row. Yeah,
it was like 30 cents or something.
Well, you get the big one. And
600 mils.
Yeah, that was the high end.
Yeah, that's a quart of milk for those Americans out there. It's incredible. All right, so
anyway,
you
that's
can't just
bad diets, poor diets. That's the thing. Obviously, that sort of stands to reason. High alcohol consumption is another one. I mean, look, this is a lot more common.
Strains.
We see a lot of this. So there was a meta-analysis done, and we've got the link. We can put it in for anybody that wants to read it up on it, which identified a non-linear association between alcohol consumption and the risk of hip fracture. So light alcohol consumption was inversely significantly associated with hip fracture risk, whereas heavy alcohol consumption was associated with an elevated hip fracture risk.
Yeah. I mean, there's many, many reasons for that.
So many reasons.
You can fall over drunk and break your hip.
That's true.
But also it does deplete your bones, of course.
Yeah.
So and hip fractures, they do use that as a metric a lot because a hip fracture, if an elderly woman or man that has a hip fracture in their older years, they're very likely to die within the next 18 months.
Yeah.
There's a strong correlation between
There
that.
is.
So it's just because when you're elderly, any sort of physical stress like that on your body is detrimental.
Yeah.
And Beck talks about this all the time in the hospital, that they're paranoid of hip fractures. So it's very, very dangerous.
Can be a dangerous one, yeah.
Drinking a lot is bad for you and your bones.
That's
so
right.
it's one of those things.
Yeah.
What else is bad for you that we all do?
Stress. Stress is bad. Stress is bad for your bones.
Yeah.
So it activates the immune response. So
Yeah.
it causes inflammation, which activates the immune response. And then, as we said, that we have that white cell activation, which then activates osteoclasts as well. So, and also stress does impact your ability to absorb nutrients. So absorb the nutrients that are healthy for bones. So there's that aspect as well.
Wow.
So stress is really, really bad for bones. And toxins are heavy metals. Again, anything that's causing inflammation in the body can cause issues. And vascular disease.
Oh, so we're talking about heart disease.
Yeah, that can also have an impact as well. So they're all things that we can work on.
Yeah, and vascular disease is interesting because the way they check for vascular disease specifically and accurately is they give you what they call a calcium score.
Yes.
Which is how much calcium is not in your bones.
In your arteries. Yeah.
And because calcium is associated with atherosclerosis.
Yeah.
So you can pick up calcium like an X-ray, it blocks it, so you can measure it, and that's a really good test to have, a calcium score.
Is.
I had a calcium score about 10 years ago.
You did, and yours was 0, wasn't it?
0.
Yeah, no, I haven't had one. I'm at the age where I'm supposed to have one now.
At your age? Jeez, yeah, absolutely. God, that old.
I know, but we talked about that. If you're interested, go back to a cholesterol podcast we did a while ago. We talked all about coronary calcium scores and calcium in your arteries and things. And there's definitely things we can do, which we talk about, that you can take calcium out of your arteries, put it back in your bones.
Yes.
So there is some things.
It's the idea, isn't it?
There. Yeah.
All right. So what are some of the non-modifiable risks? You've mentioned a few there that we can modify. People would argue that they can't modify drinking or can't modify their smoking.
Well,
we've been there before because you're in practice. You can change these people. And this is what you would be counselling people, and they struggle to change this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're addictions.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of people that smoke because I guess if anyone come to a naturopath, probably has a relatively healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, look, they can be very hard to break. I have people around me that do smoke, and so it's an addiction. So that's a hard one.
And if you know somebody who's in this sort of, I'll call it quagmire, where they can't get out of the bad habits. Nicole Brown naturopathy. You Google that and you'll come up, won't you? Because you're in practice still.
I'm in practice. Yeah.
So I mean, this. So if you know someone who's in these modifiable areas, we'll get to non-modifiables in a sec, but the modifiable ones, they can actually. But before you break your hip, before you do all this sort of stuff,
and what we have to say, and we'll talk more about it as we go on, but you have to start looking after your bones when you're young.
Yeah.
Because it starts when you're young. So what you do in your teens even, 20s and 30s, are going to help you into your 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond with your bone health. So it starts early. So it's not a matter of, I'm not 50 yet or I'm not 60 yet, I need to worry about my bones. You do. Because if you don't do the right things when you're young, you're going to have a lot more problems with your bones when you're older.
Wow.
So that's a really important thing. If you're at that age, start looking at bone health now.
Yeah, and it's not a sexy topic because, most girls go to the gym to look better, and I go to the gym to look better too. But it's like, it's also good for your bones.
Yeah, really good for your bones. We'll talk about that with the exercise as well.
So what are some of the risk factors that we can't do anything about that we have to watch for?
Being older, Steve, of course you're in that age category there. Can't do anything about that. Gender. So unfortunately that's me. So more women, obviously postmenopausal.
It's always women, isn't it?
It's always women. We're getting more into the deal there. Family history, so of osteoporosis and things like that. Yeah. So as I said, my grandma's got osteoporosis, but she had parathyroid issues, so that was a bit different. History of falls. So significant falls or breaks.
Not to do with alcohol.
Not to do with alcohol, no. A white ethnic background seems to be more prevalent in that sort of population.
Yep.
And then someone with sex hormone imbalance. It's just I question whether that's non-modifiable because we can definitely
we can modify that.
Hormonal balance. But low estrogen or low testosterone, because low testosterone can also impact our bones. So that's why it's not just about women. And women have testosterone as well.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Not enough of it. It'd be good if they had more.
Yeah. A lot of women don't have enough. A lot of women have very low testosterone.
Okay, so all right, let's look at this osteoporosis thing. Now, how many percentage of people, if you can figure this out, how many people have none of those risk factors but still get osteoporosis?
48%, Steve.
48%.
So it's
be a bit more specific.
So it's
about half the population. Yeah.
And then on the other side, 53% of the population with risk factors didn't have osteoporosis.
Oh, shit.
So you can't just look at risk factors and say, well, I'm okay because I don't fit
switch
any
off
of
the
that
rest of the
category.
podcast. We don't know this shit.
That's right, yeah. Because there's a lot of other reasons for it. So
some other reasons for it. Now, people are on medications long term. What are some of the medications that can cause problems with your bones?
Well, this is a really big one, a really significant one that impacts bone health is your corticosteroids.
Right.
And how many people are on those? People with autoimmune conditions and inflammatory conditions and all of that sort of thing. Really detrimental for bone health.
Yeah.
So, so people have organ transplants, all of that sort of thing. So corticosteroid-induced osteoporosis is not uncommon.
Wow.
So that's how significant
There's even a name for it.
It's the second most common reason for osteoporosis.
Really?
Corticosteroids.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So corticosteroids induce a biphasic bone loss with a rapid initial phase showing 10 to 20% bone loss in as little as 3 months.
Holy shit.
That's crazy, hey?
That's nuts.
Yeah, and then it slows a little bit to 2 to 5% bone loss annually. So,
wow,
that's crazy. So
that's a lot of bone loss.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and then you look back at the corticosteroids, yes, but then we look back at our chronically high cortisol as well, how that's impacting bones as well. So
stress.
There's like that, that's stress. Like stress connection. So
what other drugs are people on that people need to be aware of?
SSRIs, super common.
That stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So fluoxetine or Prozac's classic one for that. Yeah. So those ones screw your bones too.
Yep. Anticonvulsants as well.
Oh, everyone's on them. Epileptics are on them.
And acids.
Everyone's on them these days.
And PPIs, so proton pump inhibiting medication.
Yeah.
Exactly, you shut down your ability to digest and assimilate your nutrients, and you're going to absorb your nutrients, nutrient deficiencies, and then issues with your bones. So that's really, and PPIs are every second person, just about that I see on some type of PPI.
Crazy.
Yeah. So there's some big ones.
And they're over the counter now, PPIs.
Yeah, you can get 24-hour. I don't know if I say the brand, but
no, I know the one you mean.
Brand of PPI.
Yeah.
So you can just 24 hours a day. Have that.
And people are on these things for years.
Acids. Yeah, I think I've said in the podcast before, I had a client once years ago who'd been on them for 25 years.
Oh.
And they had no fingernails, no hair, no eyelashes, no eyebrows. Their teeth were a mess because they just totally depleted any of their nutrients. They couldn't absorb them. So,
no.
Yeah.
You need stomach in your you need acid in your stomach. I was going to say you need stomach in your acid.
Yeah, well, maybe that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
all right. So what other conditions can cause the bones to become crappy?
So hypogonadism. So that's basically low production of sex hormones.
Yeah,
so that's,
which happens to men and women as we age.
Yeah, definitely. And I see a lot of it in men. Low testosterone, a lot.
Oh, it's
and
everywhere.
Higher levels of estrogen. But just low testosterone is super common. I'm finding more and more in younger men in their 30s. So
30s.
Yeah, I'm seeing it a lot. So that's really interesting.
Obesity, I mean, is another risk factor for bad bones, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But that's that's also a risk factor for low testosterone in men.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and high stress will suppress your testosterone as well.
Oh.
Hyperparathyroidism, which we talked about, so that's where that controls that calcium.
Like your grandma, yep.
Yep, my grandma. So we've got hyper means fast or high, so that pulls calcium out of your bones.
It's not your thyroid hormone.
No, it's got nothing to do with your thyroid. Yeah, it just sits on the thyroid. So there's 4 of them. They sit on each sort of corner of your thyroid, but they're not a thyroid hormone.
No, they're calcium rubbish things
they're different.
for your bones.
Yeah.
Well, what other conditions can cause it?
Diabetes.
Oh, everyone's got that too.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because people with diabetes might look like they have pretty good bone density, but they have very poor bone quality, and we will talk about the differences and how that's important. It's not just about bone density. So we'll explain that a little bit further on. But diabetes is one. Hyperparathyroidism or Graves' disease. I see that quite a lot as well.
That's hypothyroid, Graves,
yep. Graves is the autoimmune version. That will just churn through bone as well.
It does, imagine.
So chronic kidney disease, so that, obviously kidneys are involved in the calcium resorption and, vitamin D and all that sort of thing. So, and even liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Yep.
Bone marrow related disorders, like say hemochromatosis.
It's when you absorb way too much iron. Yeah.
Cardiovascular disease, as we said, celiac disease. I'm going to say unmanaged, because if you're managing it well, a lot of people don't know they have celiac disease, and they're the ones where obviously it damages the microvilli, which sort of help with absorption. So you're not going to be able to absorb your nutrients as well.
Yeah, the microvilli make the surface area of your gut the size of a tennis court.
Yeah.
Which is hard to imagine, but that means you can absorb all the nutrients. And if it's all flattened out and you've got the size of one of the quarters of the tennis court, you're only going to absorb way less.
Exactly. And if you're activating your immune response continually as well, if you're not managed or you're not aware, so that impacts it. Inflammatory bowel diseases, so anything gut related. So anything gut related, it causes more inflammation, reduced absorption, all of that sort of thing, as we said. Breast cancer treatments, because they are suppressing your estrogen, if the estrogen dependent breast cancers, that is. So estrogen blockers, obviously, as soon as you lose your estrogen, impacts your bones.
And a lot of people on Arimidex, which is an aromatase inhibitor, and
a lot of men.
A lot of men are on. Yeah, we are. Because we a lot of gym goers abuse it. And they take too much of it, and their estrogen levels drop dramatically. Testosterone goes up. Great stuff to make you look hard and dry. That rippling muscles like mine. But I'm natural.
You are natural, all natural, Steve. Vitamin D deficiency obviously stands to reason.
And that's a significant one, because today is, for those who don't know, we're recording this very wet and rainy day. Now, how much vitamin D will I make today? Probably close to zero. Because, all right, I might go out to the car at lunchtime, but it's going to be raining and I'll run there. And I'll sit in the car with the windows up, maybe. Call the wife, whatever. I'm actually working, I won't do that. But it's like I'm sitting behind glass, which blocks UVB.
Yes, people don't think you can get vitamin D through glass.
And then I drive home, and then I go inside, and I won't even see the sun today. Not even a pinch of it.
No, neither.
So and that's fine for one day, because these, no worries. But you go through winter, especially where we're from, Melbourne. It's horrendous.
A lot of the people from Melbourne that I see, very low vitamin D levels coming out of winter.
Yeah, well, my sister works at a doctor's clinic there, and they don't test for vitamin D. They just presume you're low. In Melbourne, in winter. In, around the seaside suburbs of Melbourne. It's freezing. You don't go outside.
It is. I used to live on the waterfront, and it was horrendous.
Oh, yeah.
And it was beautiful. All this watch sun come up and go down.
What sun? Melbourne?
No, that's true. But
you watch the grey get lighter and then the grey get darker.
Look, Melbourne can be nice.
I know.
We love Melbourne.
I'm picking on Melbourne.
So dementia as well.
What was that?
Exactly.
Oh,
that
dementia.
Can be a risk factor as
That's a shocking risk.
Obviously, that impacts, all sorts of things. Here's one for the women and men. Being a lightweight or very small, so very petite, so you don't have a lot of weight. So obviously, the more weight you have on the bones, the better. And I'm not talking about body, fat. That's not what I mean. But structurally, so I'm a relatively large frame, I carry a bit of weight, as in.
For those who are watching on video, Nic is, looks got a very healthy body type.
But I'm 5'7", and I have a large skeleton. So you can actually measure, like if you're small, medium, large, extra large skeletal frame. So I have a large skeletal frame.
You've got
quite
big muscles.
Broad. But what I mean is there's a lot more weight on my bones than there would be for say female who's say 42, 43, 40 kilos, something like that. So there are some very, very petite women out there. So they can have more issues with their bones because they just don't have a lot of weight to maintain that bone health. And then, as I said, anything that activates your immune response. So anything that activates macrophages, as we said in the beginning, is going to activate your osteoclasts. So inflammation, anything that activates the immune system. So there's, chronic low-grade inflammation where people's immune system activated continually. So that can definitely have a huge impact on your bones.
That's nuts, isn't it? There's so many things. It's like everybody's got some of these or one of these or multiples of these. Just incredible. I mean, it's like so the risk factors we've sort of gone through them, but There's a few. I noticed another risk factor here. What about depression? That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think if you're depressed, obviously a lot of times your nutrition isn't the best. You're not exercising. You're not going out. You're not getting sunshine. You're not getting all of those lifestyle factors that are contribute to healthy bone. So depression can be quite significant as well. H. pylori, a lot of people with H. pylori infection.
Back to pylori, gut infection. About a third of people in Australia have this infection.
Yeah, so that shuts down your parietal cells, so sort of very similar to the PPIs.
Wow.
So you're not producing stomach acid.
Yep.
And I've seen people who've had some H. pylori for years and years.
Wow.
So if you have GI issues, bloating, burping is a big one with H. pylori, at least initially. And then, sometimes people might say to me, I used to have a lot of burping about 10 years ago, but I haven't had any since then.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean the H. pylori infection just goes away on its own. So you could have been 10 years with not absorbing nutrients overly well. It's going to impact your bone health. So
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, all right, so let's just play devil's advocate here. Let's say you've got a million of these risk factors and you're getting old and your hormones aren't like they used to be and you maybe a bit overweight, you may be on some drugs, you may have some liver stuff, you may have some kidney stuff, you may have something going on, inflammatory disorders, aches and pains. How do you get tested? What are the tests you could take for your bones? Because you don't do a blood test for your bones. What are some of the testings you do?
So there's a lot of tests you can do for your bones. So, and when I say there's a lot of tests you can do, they're not actually a lot of them specifically for bones, but they give indications.
Sure.
And they can give indications for some of the things that we talked about, conditions, inflammation, all of that sort of thing.
Yep.
So one of the really common ones is a DEXA. So a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry.
Yes, how much X-rays are absorbed by your bones.
That's right.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, so this will measure your bone density, but it doesn't measure your bone quality. So this used to be the gold standard.
Yeah.
And when I was doing research of this, I honestly thought this was still the gold standard.
I thought it was. Something else?
I've done some research on it, and I still think it's a good first line of investigation because it's still going to check your bone density.
Yep.
But not so much your quality.
Okay.
So we will talk I'll go into that a little bit more detail after we do the testing. But that's one. So a DEXA, and really easily accessible as well. You can get them done anywhere.
Yeah.
A full blood count, so blood testing. So and that's just looking for things like deficiencies, malabsorption issues, low iron, B12, all of that sort of thing. Cholesterol, because that can indicate any sort of vascular type issues as well. Vitamin D, high homocysteine levels, CRP or your inflammatory markers. So, so that's an interesting one. An interesting one in this is looking at your alkaline phosphatase, so your ALP. Because that's where I pick up a lot of women who have osteoporosis before they have any idea or even it's on their radar, is that ALP levels are rising. So if you look at, hopefully when you do labs, if I get blood sometimes where I don't have more than one test timestamp, but some I have 4 or 5 over a few years.
Yep.
And if your ALP is continually rising, then that can be an indication that some bone issues, because ALP is in the bone. So any sort of bone changes. So ALP, it's why ALP is very high in children because the bone growth.
Bone changing,
Yeah. So, but if you find it's rising as you're getting older, that can be an indication.
Wow.
So I usually get women primarily, but men can too, just to get a DEXA, just to check it out.
Yep.
And I've had a few come back with osteoporosis. They had no idea.
See, I've never been checked for any of this stuff.
Oh, mate.
I've had those blood tests, but it's like I'm just looking at I've never had a DEXA.
Haven't you? I've had DEXAs. I've had them for body fat because they also measure your body fat, muscle mass, all that sort of thing as well. So I've had them for
my muscle mass would be off the charts.
Well, I don't think you'd fit on the table to have the scans.
Exactly, it would be just off.
Wouldn't register. The muscles would be just too great.
So. For those who are watching this, going, "What are you talking about?" Listening, Steve must be buff. Yeah.
Insulin, HbA1c, glucose. So because high glucose will cause osteoclast activity as well.
Wow.
So you want to check.
That's our enemy at this stage.
Yeah, that's the one that eats away the bone.
Yep.
Thyroid function obviously is hyperthyroid. Plus parathyroid hormone as well. I always get that done. Iron panel, lipid panel, all of that sort of thing.
Wow.
Would get done.
Yep.
Gluten, check for gluten, and also wheat sensitivity, which we did a podcast on gluten and non-gluten
I'm sure we did.
sensitivity.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, so don't have to be a celiac to have an issue. You could have gluten or wheat sensitivity or still have immune reactions, and we talked about the different proteins. So that's something you want to look at. If you said, I feel funny when I eat gluten, but I've tested negative for celiac. So you could still have an issue.
You're just intolerant to it.
Yeah, so you still have an immune reaction, can still impact your bones. So they're the sort of first line of sort of testing you can get done through your GP. It's just moaning your bloods and your DEXAs. You can go and get done yourself.
So there's your first line. What are some of the second line tests you could look at?
So some of the second line testing, basically, which is when things may come back a little bit, not 100% in the first line, you go, okay, we need to do a little bit more. So organic acid testing can be really good because that checks a lot of the different systems in the bodies. So that's a really one for any imbalances. Stool analysis, because we're checking for the gut, obviously. As we said, the guts can be significantly involved as well. And then some more specific markers for testing. So one of them is a P1NP test.
Oh, that's a long word.
So pro-collagen type 1 terminal peptide.
That's it.
So this is a bone formation marker.
Yep.
And it reflects the amount of collagen produced by osteoblasts.
That's the goodies.
So this will monitor osteoblast activity. So this is really good for people who are on medications to build bone.
Yeah.
So this is a good test to have sort of every 3 months to see if it's actually working because you don't want to be having things like your anabolic medications to build bone if they're not working.
Yeah.
So this is quite a good marker. Bone resorption markers. So there's CTX, NTX, DPD. So there's some of them. So CTX is one of the more common ones. If you get one of these tests done, make sure you're fasted. Make sure it's in the morning, and don't have any biotin or collagen products for 48 hours before. Otherwise, the test will come back false negative versus false positives.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. And here's another one, a FRAX test.
Well, that's that new thing you add onto the DEXA, isn't it?
Yes. So fracture risk assessment. So usually if you have a DEX, I don't know if a lot of companies are doing it yet, but you can actually work out your FRAX yourself. So a lot of companies, when they do the DEXA, they'll work out your FRAX, which is your fracture risk assessment. So a FRAX score is based on age, sex, weight, height, and other specific sort of things related to your physiology.
Right.
And it can determine like a 10-year probability for osteoporosis. So if you do a DEXA and you don't have a FRAX done with that, or they didn't do a FRAX, you can get online. They've got FRAX calculators, so you can kind of work it out yourself.
Take your results and work it out online.
Yeah. So you need to have the DEXA on your femoral neck.
Right.
So that has to be involved.
So the femoral neck is the top of the bone of your leg, big bone, the biggest bone in the body.
That's right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. And then next we have a trabecular bone score, and I'm going to talk about trabecular because that's really interesting.
This is a really cool test, eh?
Yeah, this one's really cool. So it's a non-invasive, it's computer generated.
Yep.
Calculation, so it's a software calculation that's based on the analysis of like DEXA, type of thing. And the trabecular bone score estimates the microarchitecture of the trabecula in the vertebral bodies of your lumbar spine, and it provides you with a sort of score.
In your back is what we're talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
Very important bones to have strong.
They are, and we're going to talk about them because I find that kind of really cool. And this is where we can start to talk about your bone quality versus your bone density.
Yeah, I saw that. What's the difference?
So bone density. So this is in the US. The National Cancer Institute in the US defines bone density as a measure of the amount of minerals, mostly calcium and phosphorus, contained in certain volume of bone.
Right.
So that's that sort of definition. So as I said, the DEXA examines, it measures bone density, but not bone quality.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of studies that show that people with fractures have only moderately decreased bone density.
Wow.
But still getting fractures and things like that.
Okay.
There's some studies showing that half of all menopausal fractures occur in women with bone mineral density tests indicating that their bone mineral density isn't low enough to have osteoporosis,
Huh.
yet they're still getting fractures.
Okay.
So bone quality and bone density, it's really important to actually look at the bone quality as well. So bone quality refers to the mineral properties and architecture of the bone. So it has to do with how bone is made, the cortical margin, the fabric of the trabecula inside the bone, which we're going to talk about, and the porocytes in the cortical part. So a bone with higher quality is better able to withstand stress and potentially fracture, that sort of thing. So the bone quality is really important.
Super important.
Really, really important.
Yeah, jeez.
So we'll talk about the bone anatomy, because then I want to talk more about the trabeculae, because I find that really
That's
fascinating.
fascinating stuff. You got some great diagrams here.
I've got a cool diagram, yeah.
Yeah, they're really good.
So say a bone is composed of both cortical and cancellous, which is the trabecular bone. So most bones have a mix of both types.
Trabeculars means small beams in Latin.
It does.
I just read
Small
that.
laser beams, Steve.
Laser beams?
Yeah. Did I not put laser?
No, you didn't put lasers in there.
Or maybe it is just small beams. Laser beam sounds better though.
It's like that 1980s movie. Hit me with your laser beam. Doom, doom, doom.
Okay, singing again.
A lot of 80s going on today.
Oh no. So cortical bone.
Yep.
So cortical bones is sometimes referred to as compact bone.
Yep.
So it forms the cortex or the outer shell of the most of the bones. So it's much denser, rigider, and stronger than other types of bones. It's quite hard. And then cancellous bone or trabecular or spongy bone. So that's more the inner. So that's so the Latin for small beams. You went ahead of me there. Or spongy bone. Yeah. So it's at the end of the long bones, at the point of attachment at joints, and within the interior of the vertebrae. So it has a greater surface area. It's more porous, softer, less dense, and less stiff than cortical bone.
Okay.
So this is the bone that's more affected by osteoporosis. So I don't know if you can see this. Matt will probably put a picture up anyway. And it is in black and white. But this gives you an idea. This is like this is inside the bone.
Yeah.
So it looks like lots of little scaffolding, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite, porous. So that's your trabecula.
Yeah.
So it should all be connected. So little connections all the way through.
Real strong. Yep.
And then there's a little picture here of an osteoporotic bone, and you can see that the trabecula
Lots of gaps.
So many gaps. A lot of the connections have been broken.
Yeah.
So they're not connected anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot lot of the problems arise.
Yeah.
So with osteoporosis, that's kind of what we're talking about, is that trabecular bone. So it's like scaffolding, and this is an analogy I got off online, but I really liked it. So it's like a building that has concrete. It's a concrete building, right? So it's solid, but it's really rigid and inaccessible.
Yeah.
So instead, the building should have support beams and struts and all that sort of stuff, so that it actually creates a frame internally that actually helps with the building is actually flexible. So a lot of those high rises, you see, they actually have to be flexible or they'll snap and just fall over. So it's kind of like that. So you need that trabecula in the middle of the bone to keep everything a little bit more pliable and flexible. So that's really important to have that healthy trabecula, and aging, disease, all these other issues that we talk about can really impact that trabecula.
Wow.
So you can have either rod or plate shaped trabecula.
Oh, I didn't know.
So you want to have more of the plate like trabecula interweaved with the narrower rod like trabecula.
Okay.
And that gives you better bone quality than having more of the rod shaped trabecula.
Sure.
So I find that's
it's fascinating.
yeah, really, really.
It's like it's intricate. I mean, people just think bones, calcium, and that's it. You just think
so
drink your milk and all this crap.
Yeah.
Maybe do exercise if you know what you're talking about, but that's about it. And it's like, it's just way more complicated than that.
Yeah, no, so much more complicated. So that's really, really interesting. And then here's a little bit I found too when I was doing research. So bone location and fracture risk, so where the different bones and the fractures. So bones are they have a lot of force on them when we move. So we have compressive and shearing type loads. So compressive basically is this you squatting,
weight bearing,
that sort of thing. And then shearing loads more sort of the neck, the femoral neck, that sort of thing on the hip. So for an example, vertebral bodies must resist high and repetitive axial compression loads, yet they don't have as much shear loads and tension loads. So if the trabecular bone is reduced in a vertical body, this tends to increase cortical shell stresses and disproportionate disproportionately decrease in the vertebrae bones, so their ability to withstand compression forces is diminished, if that makes sense.
Gotcha,
yeah. So that's really important. And then the femoral neck, on the other hand, is mainly like shear force.
Shear force on your leg bone,
So that's bending, that sort of thing. So the hip area has to have, be much stronger. So the bone quality diminishes in the femoral area. Then that's when you have more incidents of fracture and that type of thing.
Gotcha, yeah.
So, and this is where it comes back to when we talked about what you do when you're young translates to healthy bones as you get older.
Yep.
So the amount and type of physical activity you do throughout your life can really impact your bone quality as you get older. So there's a paper published in March 2020 in the journal Osteoporosis International.
Phew, love the title. Go for it.
And the title, the paper was called Associations Between Physical Activity and Bone Structure in Older Adults.
Yep.
Does the use of self-reported versus objective... hang on, I've missed my page now. Objective, wait for it. Assessments of physical activity influence the relationship. And this is by Dr. Carrie Ann Ng and colleagues in Monash.
So it's very interesting. So there's two types of things there. We talk about objective measurements and we talk about self-reporting.
Yeah.
So if I say to you, Nick, how often do you exercise? And you say 6 times a week. This is quite a common thing. Okay. And then we actually measure and spine you through your curtains and you exercise 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That's the difference between objective and subjective.
Yeah.
And it's a very common, and we find that a lot with drinking. People say, how many beers do you drink a week? Oh, just a couple a day, and you look at it and it's 6 or something. It's very common.
Yeah.
So, you've got to look at the objective things.
Right.
So, sorry, just so that people know what we're talking about there.
No, that's perfect. Examine the effects of physical activity during different periods on bone locations.
Yep.
So she stated that in postmenopausal women with low bone mineral density, current physical activity was positively associated with femoral neck bone mineral density and microarchitecture.
All right. So positive means that the more exercise, the more bone.
Yeah. So even if you are menopausal and you have osteoporosis, starting exercise can definitely be beneficial.
That's good.
And past physical activity was possibly associated with tibial microarchitecture. So physical activity that you do today or recently can positively impact your bone mineral density in your femoral neck area, whereas bone mineral density in the tibial microarchitecture located in the ankle, and it's sort of a correlates with the bone in the spine, is mostly influenced by physical activity you did in your early years.
Wow.
So that's where...
They're both good.
Both good. So, training when you're younger really does help your bones when you're older. So
amazing,
it's really interesting.
And it's quite interesting because the worst demographic I find, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are postmenopausal women. They are very prone to inactivity.
They are, yeah. A lot of them
very prone.
And you know what? You can even get a postmenopausal woman who's been active her whole life, lifted all that sort of stuff, and she will still have bone loss. Yeah. Because as soon as you lose your estrogen, you will have bone loss. So what you lay down early in your life is going to be beneficial when you go through menopause. So the better bone mineral density and quality you have leading into menopause, the better will you'll be post, because you will lose some of that. So you want to go in pretty well rather than pretty average. Yeah. So yes. So now we can talk about the cool stuff, Steve.
Cool stuff. Let's do it.
So
treatments. Oh God, drink milk, don't we?
Just drink.
No, that's what everyone's thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So there is conventional treatments for osteoporosis. Yep. Different kinds of drugs.
Oh, let's go to the drugs first. Yeah.
So let's do the drugs.
Tell me about the drugs.
So bisphosphonates.
All right. Yep. So Fosamax is a brand name of one of those. Yep.
Yeah,
most
that's
common.
Right. And they can give them with calcium and vitamin D sometimes as well. I might botch this whole name up, but risodronate.
Yep.
Zoledronic.
Yep.
So there's some different types of bisphosphonates.
Yep.
So some of the side effects of bisphosphonates can be stomach upset, nausea, heartburn, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea.
Is that all?
You also have to stay upright for 30 minutes after taking it.
Okay. Yep. Upright. Yep.
Irritate the esophagus.
Oh God.
Yeah. So that's some of those. And then there's a whole lot of them. So the intravenous ones you can have.
Is that zoledronic acid?
Zoledronic acid. So that's a once a year intravenous infusion treatment.
Yeah, once a year. That sounds right.
So that's good for people that have issues with the oral stuff, like side effects from the oral stuff. So some other side effects of bisphosphonates are joint and muscle pain. And here's a good one for you, Steve.
What is it?
A rare side effect is osteonecrosis of the jaw.
Oh, my God.
Which can cause severe jaw pain, swelling, infection of the jaw region, and loosening of the teeth and exposed bone.
Oh, God.
So
okay.
This is if you've been taking them for quite a long time.
I think I'd rather go to the gym.
Yeah, right. So there's a few issues with that. Hormone replacement therapy, so HRT, obviously particularly for women. It can be helpful for a little bit of bone loss, but there's pros and cons for that sort of thing. We can go on and on. Terperanitine, you can say better than me. So this is an anabolic.
Yeah, hey, let's get into it. Oh no, it's not that. Not a steroid.
Not a steroid.
Damn.
So it increases bone formation.
Yep.
So it increases bone density.
Yep.
Does it increase bone quality? Don't know about that.
I'm still thinking the gym looks like a good option.
Right, exactly. So there's more. So there's quite
Loads
a few
of drugs.
injectables, 6 monthly injectables. There's pros and cons. The injectables, they sometimes for some people they might last 3-4 months, and others they might last 6. But they're 6 monthly injections. So if you get it and this is interesting. So there's one called Prolia. This is one of the most not one of the most common, but it's quite a common one. It's a monoclonal antibody medicine. This is the 6 monthly injections, and I've had a few clients who've their GPs recommended this medication to them. So it's good at building bone density and bone quality, and this came from a research paper, the fact that it works really well means that it can actually be detrimental as well. Because when you stop using it, you have a massive rebound of bone loss. So this one's, it's kind of
reminds me of
hard.
another injectable drug we use for weight loss.
Massive
withdrawal.
massive rebound as well. So they recommend not more than 18 months because Prolia is what's called a RANKL inhibitor, receptor and activator for nuclear factor kappa B.
Yep. So nuclear factor kappa B is something that drives inflammation. So if you can knock that out, you can help your bones dramatically.
Yeah.
Wow.
And RANKL's a direct stimulator of the osteoclast. So if it's an inhibitor, you directly take away that osteoclast activation.
Activity,
It's not activating that.
Wow.
When you have to, if you miss, say it only lasts 3 months for you, whereas someone else it might last 6. So if you then take it, you've got 3 months where you have that bounce back of bone loss. So you need to be really all over it. So I find that really interesting and it's like a lot of medications, PPIs, everything. You have that bounce back effect because it shuts down a pathway, and then what happens as soon as you stop it, that pathway it will completely bounce back, and you go way too far the other way. So this one, it doesn't kill the osteoclast like a bisphosphonate does. Yeah. It shrinks down the osteoclasts and makes them into these osteomorphs.
Ooh.
So they're quiescent, which means they're just sitting there. And they're shrunk down osteoclasts. So as soon as you stop the Prolia, all these osteomorphs burst out. Then you have tons and tons and tons and tons
your bone just suffers.
of osteoclasts running around, and it's just eating up all your bone.
That's terrible.
So you want to be careful if you're doing the medications. And look, sometimes the medications they can be necessary if you have significant bone loss, but you got to.
I'm not liking that.
No, I'm not liking that either. So now we talk about the stuff we love is the holistic treatments.
Oh, look, and I've got papers galore here, but
so many.
If you want to go through yours and because I love the first one you listed there.
Yeah.
Good for you anyway.
So as we always say, first address the root cause. So if it's not postmenopausal there is other reasons for bone loss, we want to address
smoking.
that.
If you're smoking out there, seriously, give the shit up.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Diet, exercise. Also, if you have any gut issues, any autoimmune conditions, any other inflammatory conditions, we want to address all of those. Alpha lipoic acid.
That's found in liver and potatoes naturally. So we're talking about a natural compound here.
Yeah. So this increases glutathione and superoxide dismutase. So these both really, really amazing antioxidants. Reduces reactive oxygen species. protects against oxidative damage,
Yep.
reduces damage from interleukin 1, interleukin 6, TNF alpha, promotes osteoblast differentiations and maturations, and inhibits apoptosis through modulation of the WNT pathway, which we were talking about the WNT pathway before. We were talking about genes.
And it's amazing, isn't it? We got a lot of, actually after this we're doing a gene podcast.
Yeah.
But so I won't go into that too much. But it's interesting because that's inflammation, and lipoic acid is great for getting rid of heavy metals.
Yes.
Which is good for your bones.
Yeah.
And great for your brain, which is good for your bones. But it's really good for all sorts of things. Great for diabetes too.
Yeah, really good. It's a good antioxidant.
Yep.
NAC, N-acetylcysteine.
Yep.
It's a great for antioxidant, reduces reactive oxygen species, reduces osteoclast formation and bone resorption, protects osteoblast function from oxidative stress.
Yep.
Regulates PPAR, gamma, inhibits adipogenesis of bone marrow cells, increases osteoblast formation, reduces oxidative stress. Does a lot of things NAC, but bone health is another
cooks
really
your
good
breakfast
one.
for you. It does everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Love it.
Here's another one. This is one of
You
my.
love this one?
I love this one.
Go.
I love it. And we did a little podcast on it about the pros and cons, but I see a lot of cons, but I don't buy into a lot of it.
No.
Berberine.
Berberine.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of herbs.
It's in a lot of herbs. So it's good for anti-aging. I full disclosure, I do take berberine. I take it, yeah.
I'd like to take it, but I took it for a while years ago, and I lost a bit of weight, so I went off it because I'm a little bit lean already. So that's the side effect of it, isn't it?
It can be higher doses, yeah. So it inhibits osteoclasts. It actually increases bone mineral density.
Nice.
It activates AMP-K, as we know. It stimulates osteoblasts through RUN-X2.
Jesus, don't even heard of that one.
Neither have I.
Amazing.
But it was in the research.
But it's like that is a great herb, and there's a research article we got in front of us here on Epimedi, which is a great herb for building bone, and it boosts osteoblasts and reduces osteoclasts. So we've got a paper on that too. So it's another great herb.
Yeah.
But you've got another herb that's good for your bones,
really good,
and your liver.
Yeah. So I will say with the berberine, low dose.
Yeah.
Because it does have antimicrobial effects, and that's what the whole contexture is about.
Gotcha.
Berberine. So if you're going to be using it for an extended period of time, you don't want to do super high doses. So, and when I say low dose, even as low as 300 milligrams, 300 to 500 milligrams.
Yep.
So
that's all right.
Lowish dose. So Silymarin, this is another one. I actually take this as well.
This is a good herb.
So this is a great herb. So St Mary's thistle, people may also know that as well. So it reduces oxidative stress.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Increases osteoblasts and decreases osteoclasts. It modulates the immune system. Has estrogenic effects on bone and anti-estrogenic effects in uterus in rats.
How cool is that?
But it is good for postmenopausal women's St Mary's thistle for that slightly estrogenic effect. It's anti-osteoporotic and selective estrogen receptor modulator activity. That's at a rat study.
Yep.
But really good as well. And, obviously liver health overall, really good.
Wow. That's
Here's
a good
another
one.
one of our favourites, Steve.
Yep. I've got a paper on this next one.
Read them. So collagen peptides. 5 grams a day increases bone mineral density. Absorbed in the small intestine, 10% absorbed as intact peptides. I think we talked about that in another podcast as well. Yep. They act as gene signaling molecules for anabolic bone formation.
Mm-hmm.
So it increases P1NP, which is that marker we were talking about before. So it's also essential for bone flexibility and elasticity.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of collagen in bone.
Absolutely.
So
I've got a paper here titled Specific Bioactive Collagen Peptides in Osteopenia and Osteoporosis, Long-Term Observational Study in Postmenopausal Women out of Germany. So from your home country.
My home country, yes.
Yes. You've even got a little German dog now, haven't you?
I have got a German dog, yes.
Deutsche Schäferhund. I think that's German for...
German Shepherd.
German Shepherd, isn't it?
Oh, there you go.
Well, you're German.
I don't know.
Oh,
I was going to teach him all his commands in German, but I didn't.
Yes.
I didn't.
Vicious killer dog.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy. So it's a great paper, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
brilliant
it's
one.
a really good one. Here's another really good one, I always prescribe this for people with bone issues and even cardiovascular issues, and artery issues. Vitamin K2.
Mm-hmm.
So it activates osteocalcin, which is a vitamin D dependent protein synthesized by osteoblasts. It's been just demonstrated to be related to bone mineralization. So it also decreases bone resorption by reducing prostaglandin E2 synthesis in
That's an inflammatory marker, yep.
Yeah. What else does it do? Increases collagen synthesis and accumulation. I love K2. There's so much research. I think you've got a paper on it too, don't you?
Oh, I didn't bring a paper of that. Of course, I've slack ass.
I thought you... Have I got the paper on that? Anyway.
You might have. It's just one that I just sort of thought, like with vitamin D, it's a really good one.
It's a really, really good one. There's a lot of really good emerging research.
Good for morning
vitamin
sickness
K2.
too, if my memory serves.
Yeah, so many good things. As I said, good for calcium in the arteries as well.
Oh, yeah.
It takes calcium out of the arteries, puts it back in the bones.
That's what we want it.
Yeah, so kind of...
Don't want it in your arteries.
No, don't want it in the arteries. Vitamin D, obviously. You need that to absorb
Vitamin D is
calcium.
good. I've got a paper on this. Vitamin D on its own is brilliant, but when you combine it with calcium, it's really interesting. Because what it does is, as we all know, minerals need to be taken together. And calcium is the same sort of valency, I'll call it, but charge as magnesium. So if you take loads of calcium, it knocks out magnesium. And if you end up with low magnesium, it's bad for your heart. So this is a paper where they gave them, in the American Journal of College Cardiology, 2021, they gave people high amounts, well, they observed people that took high amounts of vitamin D, good for your bones, calcium, good for your bones allegedly, and without magnesium, and it was bad for their heart. The title of the paper is called Vitamin D, Calcium Supplements and Implications for Cardiovascular Health.
There you go.
So,
and interestingly, if you've got low magnesium, you can't absorb your vitamin D.
I know. And it's incredible. I mean, magnesium is brilliant for the bones.
Yeah.
I've got a paper here on the impact of magnesium on bone health in older adults, systemic review, and it basically says you got to take magnesium. So that's a good one.
It's a really good one, magnesium.
Really good one. Things, sorry, let's go on because you got even got an amino acid here for your bones.
I have lysine.
Lysine. It's good for herpes. What else?
It is good for herpes.
Yeah.
Improves calcium absorption in the gut and reduces calcium lost in urine.
Oh my God.
It also removes calcium from the arteries.
Yep.
Very good for people who have high lipoprotein A.
Lipoprotein A is a bad type of cholesterol.
Yeah.
Keep
really
it simple.
Good for that.
Yep.
So people have high...
And you've even got here that you can take bugs in your gut and that can actually help with your bones. How the hell does that work?
So I found a study on a multi-species probiotic, so one that had a lot of different species in it.
Yep.
So they have been found to have a beneficial effect on bone metabolism. So this was a randomised, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial for the effects of multi-species probiotic supplementation on bone turnover markers.
Yep.
So this was done over 12 weeks.
Yep.
40 postmenopausal women with osteopenia were included and divided into two groups, blah, blah, blah. Yep. And then, so the result was there was distinct decrease in serum CTX score, which is what's that bone
the type 1 collagen,
marker.
Yep.
At 12 weeks compared to baseline. So basically showing that probiotics look like they do have a preventative effect on bone through the anti-resorptive effect in osteopenic postmenopausal women.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously premenopausal as well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it goes back to the gut. So if there's any inflammation or sort of imbalances in the gut, that's going to impact our bone health as well. So probiotics can be quite good as well.
It's a good one. Now, that's really important, and you've got to remember that there's quite a few things that we have to watch for in our gut too. Now another risk factor we have as we age is obesity, and obesity is usually people think, oh, your bones are all right because you're weight bearing and stuff. But what they found is in this paper, it's called Fracture Risk in Obesity, a Narrative Review. It basically found out that yes, their bones were fine, but if they're heavier, they fall over and break their bones more often. So it's sort of like saying, yeah, okay, your bones are fine, but you have a much higher fracture risk. And that's the important thing. And I use that as a marker for how your bones are going because they're great until they break.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. I don't think I've even broken a bone in my body ever.
Really?
Is that weird?
It's not adventurous, Steve.
Smashed my cartilage in my nose and I've got a deviated septum, but I don't think I broke the bone in my nose.
Wow.
Weirdly.
I've broken so many things.
Oh, yeah.
So many things. Always in casts and slings, and so my mum's like...
You're always in the wars.
Neither of my brothers have broken a bone. I'm just adventurous. That's why. You can't break a bone if you sit on the couch, Steve.
No, definitely not.
Exercise, Steve.
Exercise. Well, we can talk about exercise, and before we finish, just remind me about this topic too, because I've got some papers on that.
We will talk about that because we'll talk about diet, but that's super interesting. We'll talk about that. But exercise. So
yeah, let's talk about exercise.
You want to do obviously weight-bearing exercises and impact exercises. It's not just one thing. Aerobic exercise also is really important. So that helps improve enzymatic activation of osteoblasts.
Blast the goodies.
Yeah, so a bit of aerobic exercise. Multi-component training of numerous muscle groups is important. So different exercises. So, some sort of aerobic exercise, resistance training, balance activities, things like that all help with bone density.
You've got to hear dancing.
Yeah, running,
I'm screwed.
around.
I can't stand dancing.
Don't you?
I'd rather have my front teeth.
You never danced around the house, Steve?
No.
Never?
Honestly, never danced around the house.
Never lived.
I just, dancing, I don't know.
Oh.
I'm most
you don't have to be good at dancing.
Oh, I'm definitely not good at dancing.
It's just jumping around. So
jumping around. Played guitar for years, so it's jumping around, same thing, isn't it?
Well, that's true, yeah.
Except you did terrible things on your bones back then, God.
That's true.
Strength training. Yeah, tell me about that.
Strength training, so obviously low estrogen and even low testosterone can cause muscles to lose their size.
I wouldn't know about that, but anyway.
So here's another one. So body fat does not protect against osteoporosis
development.
It doesn't. So that's why strengthening our muscles is important as well as strengthening our bones.
Yep.
So if muscle density is reducing and fat mass is increasing, we're weaker, but there's less stress being placed on your bones from the movement of the muscle. So the pulling of the muscle.
So what would you say to somebody who says, but I exercise because I go to the shops and walk around?
Yeah, probably not.
You laugh. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there has to be weight on the bones.
Yep.
And, we've talked about muscle synthesis and building muscle. You have to have that. So this one's an interesting one. So bone loading exercises must be performed for a year or more to see changes at least 2 times a week.
Oh, yeah, that's achievable.
Yeah. So a year or more. So that's of women who are postmenopausal. I'll just start doing some little light weights in the lounge room. It's not going to do anything.
No. So the excuses people come up with not going to the gym, there's a billion of them. But one of them is that they work Monday to Friday, long hours. I know someone like this. But they need to work out twice a week. They could do Saturday, Sundays there.
They could, yeah.
I mean, that's you do upper and lower body, you split it.
Yeah.
That'll cover you off for this.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll help your other stuff too, but, it's like that's really good. Very interesting.
Yep.
Now, protein, that's interesting because I was told protein kills your bones. Of course, that's been demystified a billion times, so we won't do it here.
Protein's really important for bone health. Really,
it's made
really
of protein.
Important. Exactly. So amino acids increase bone mass. So lysine, threonine, methionine, tryptophan, and isoleucine can increase osteoblast proliferation, activation and differentiation, and decreased osteoclast activity. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Nice, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And you've got here now. Next thing is sort of diet.
Yeah.
And with the dairy stuff here, I found some interesting stuff on it. Not all dairy's bad.
No.
But drinking milk is.
Yes.
I'll just go through a couple of the studies here because before we get onto the diet that's actually good for you. The Association between Dairy. This is a paper titled British Medical Journal. And it's called The Association between Dairy Intake and Fracture in an Australian-based cohort of women. Perfect study.
Perfect.
And what they found is that basically there was a trend for an increased major fracture was detected in zero milk and higher total dairy consuming women. So if you have skim milk and you eat a lot of dairy, your bones are at higher risk. So very interesting. So that's one study.
It's one.
Another study here was called Dairy Intake and Risk of Hip Fracture in Prospective Cohort Studies. Of an analysis of 486,000 adults.
Oh, so just a small one.
Yeah, and what they found here was that overall elevated risk of hip fracture associated with greater milk intake, while lower risk of hip fractures reported for higher yogurt and cheese. So if it's fermented or it's been, it's actually very good for you.
Yeah. So the whole dairy thing, good throwing, Steve.
That was.
The whole dairy thing, look. We were talking before, where does it come from? I think it's just was a great marketing hype that just got picked up by medical professionals that said you need to have calcium from dairy, but there is calcium in foods outside of dairy.
What such foods are you talking
There's
about?
a lot of them that have calcium in them. So tofu, if you're into tofu, seaweed.
I'm into champagne.
Are you? Champagne?
Do you know that song?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God. He's going to break into song again.
Do you like pina coladas?
Oh, and Dancing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not into tofu. I'm into champagne.
I didn't know that we had. I didn't know that. You didn't know that.
Really?
No. And Matt eats
The
tofu.
Escape song? Come on.
I didn't know that.
It's called Escape. Everyone calls it the pina colada song, but it's actually called Escape.
Oh, there you go.
And it's about adultery, if you're wondering.
I do know that. You should tell me that. Everyone's singing along cheery to this song about
It's
adultery.
a very bop. It's one of those songs that when you play, it sounds like you're playing on a guitar, dun, 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 and it's really boppy, and then you're singing about adultery.
Love it. See, it's just a cover-up. It's just like magic hands.
Yeah,
Look at
it's
his hand. And
good.
this has to do something.
Because I remember I played it at a wedding once, opening
Great.
song. Because I
That's not a
thought,
good
what's a
start, is it?
boppy one? I was on the guitar, just a bit of quiet music, so I thought, I'll sing Escape, the song. Just started singing it. I was tired of my lady. Oops.
Oh, no.
Jeez, it's been together too long. Like a worn-out recording of an old song. Remember when recordings used to wear out?
Yes,
In the
I
record?
do.
So anyway,
Yes.
so that's the Escape song.
Oh, so yeah. But I also, and I think you're probably the same, I haven't had dairy in 30 years, probably, any dairy, and I have nothing wrong with my bones. So,
Yeah, look, if you want to have, low-fat Greek yogurt, I think that's fine. 'Cause it's fermented and stuff.
As I said, kefirs are
But-
really great. That
Yep.
sort of thing's really good. But all your leafy greens are
Yeah.
really good. Your nuts are really good.
Yep, my nuts are great.
legumes,
Nick?
figs.
That'll giggle. I said nuts are great.
Sesame seeds, which is tahini,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So you can get a lot of calcium from your vegetables or plant-based foods. You don't necessarily need to have dairy.
No.
It can be detrimental. So
And
yeah.
all these foods are good for you too, in other
They're
ways.
really good for. They have so many other issues. So overall,
Yeah. So Nick,
bone health.
Yeah. What's the take-home message here? So say you're, we stereotypically a menopausal woman,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to look after your bones. Not like you should. It's like you need to. So-
Because, and it's not all, like we said, it's not just postmenopausal women, but you will lose bone.
Oh yeah.
Because you're losing your estrogen, so you will. So definitely for postmenopausal women, 100% you really need to get onto it. But as we've pointed out, anyone that has any sort of chronic inflammatory condition, any issues with absorption of nutrients, like so many different factors, you could have issues with your bones as well. And if you don't, and you're young, look after your bones now. Get out, do some strength training, and
Yep.
lay down that bone so that when you get older, you're less likely to have issues. Because if you don't have good bones, you don't have good.
I find the bone one's a bit weird for me because I find people who'll go through life, don't give a shit about their bones, fall over, break a hip, and then it's surgeries and they go all this intervention and it's like, oh, quick, save me, get these grafts and all these massive surgeries, but they don't bother exercising or eating well to prevent the damn bones getting like that in the first place. But it's like a heart attack. After the heart attack, they do everything, surgeries and grafts and stents. And so why didn't you go for that walk beforehand or go to the gym or do a bit of exercise? I don't get it.
No,
I
and
don't get
it's
it.
like everything. Everything is preventative medicine is better than reparative medicine.
Oh, yeah.
And bones aren't interesting, and they're not sexy, and they're not cool to talk about, and no
My
one
bones are
thinks
sexy.
about them. Oh, that's true.
Look
So
at my rippling arms.
rippling. But it's.
Oh, sorry, I was just being humorous.
Oh God! He waited to the end for that one. I'm glad he waited to the end. We didn't get the mute button quick enough for that one.
Oh,
That's
no,
a terrible one.
that's got to be cut out.
terrible.
That's such a terrible joke. Humorous is the bone in your arm, just for people.
We'll have to end on that because we're just going to.
Oh, we have to
people
end
have probably
now.
switched off by now.
Tell them.
After that.
All right, Nick. Well, let's go in there next week. Probably going to talk about your jeans next week.
My jeans, my Levi's.
Yeah, your Levi's.
Yeah.
And 501s.
God, isn't that
See, I
going
know
back?
that.
Everyone wanted to
Is
wear
that
the
still around?
501. I don't know. Can you still get 501s?
I don't know.
Everyone used to, when I was a teenager, you had to have 501s.
Really?
And they're not even that great a drink. Sorry, Levi, but they weren't that great a shape, really.
I don't know. I look shit in e-jeans because I've
I
got
don't
pin
have
legs.
Levi's for years.
All right, well, let's run off before we spoil it. But all right, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye. This is what happens when you're to the page.
Carefully you say that.
Cut that bit out.
Okay.
Yeah.